A lot easier.
Alright. Yeah.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Ronin's Den, and as always, here I am here, Duality Complex, with the Dragon X, and we also have some of our other friends. Seventh Mastery, most people recognize him from TikTok or Twitch. Olive Garden, also from TikTok, and our new friend Z, who I met over at TikTok, who's going to be in our Fabula Ultima game, along with Seventh Mastery, actually. So tonight's topic's going to be what have TTRPGs done for you? I'm going to turn this over to the Dragon X because he's got some fun announcements for us.
So we have a sponsor for the first time.
Congratulations! Yay!
We are being sponsored by Dubby Energy Drink. If you go to Dubby Energy Drink and place an order, you can use the promo code DENENERGY, DENENGERY, or ERGY. I spelled that horribly wrong. DENENERGY. Den Energy for a 10% off discount on anything you purchase, and we get a little kickback for it. So if you do it, it'd be awesome. If not, we don't care either way. It's just was nice to have a sponsor. Yeah, back to you.
All right. So tonight we are going to be talking about the good things that TTRPGs have done for us. And I wanted to start off with just going left to right on the screen. And Seventh Master, you just got luck of the draw with the way the monitors got arranged. So,
Excellent.
Yeah, so first question I got was, what was your first TTRPG and how did you find that one?
All right. That's an easy story for me, but it's it's moderately entertaining maybe. I actually was 5 years old. The year I was starting kindergarten, my brothers were playing Dungeons and Dragons. They didn't have enough people to play with them, and they did not have anybody who was willing to be a cleric. So, I, being the ever-present kid brother, wanted to play, and they said, if you'll play a cleric and you'll be, our healer, you can play. So I got to be Cleric the Cleric. Yes, I did not even get a name. I was just Cleric the Cleric. And I basically just waited for them to say, heal me, and I healed them. And I did that for my first several months of gaming until I got tired of it. And decided I wanted to charge the Tyrannosaurus Rex after I had already made the Dungeon Master very angry by asking how the Tyrannosaurus Rex had gotten to the dungeon because there were only 5-foot wide tunnels outside the room, and we had found no evidence of anything large enough for a Tyrannosaurus Rex to fit through. And yeah, he was mad at me. I decided to attack him instead of healing my brothers, and there ended Cleric the Cleric, clutched in a jaws of the Tyrannosaurus Rex and chewed up. Kind of like if you've ever read Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, they have that little sub comic in it where they're like, what's the most horrifying movie ever, and there's a dinosaur that just chews a guy for half the movie. It's like that.
Okay.
It is amazing though, because if Cleric the Cleric was a red box trope at first level, you wouldn't even be able to heal them.
Oh yeah, it's true. I always miraculously found magic items that let me heal way better than I was supposed to.
What edition was this?
It was old school, yeah, box set. I remember we were already playing when the hardcovers for Advance came out. So pamphlet box set era. And then being super confused because suddenly OD&D came out. I didn't understand they were separate games, but sort of the same game. And so suddenly Elf was a class, and I just didn't understand what was going on because it was a class before, and then it wasn't a class, and then it was a class again. And yeah, that was super confusing because I was by that point I was maybe 6 or 7. I don't know. But yeah, that was my introduction to gaming. We also played the first release of Marvel Superheroes very shortly thereafter, and Star Frontiers.
Was that the face? Was it Face Ripper, Marvel?
Face Rip, yep.
Oh.
It's still one of the best superhero games there is. Still utterly playable, very usable, and oddly enough circles back to kind of the new, because I feel like games moved to super crunchy and super like champions explicit GURPS, nuance, all these little options, 3.5 D&D, and then I feel like we're kind of swinging back to kind of like a more simple game. And I think a lot of people who are playing the current like age of games would actually find Phase Rip really easy.
Oh yeah.
One resolution table, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Any comparison to Masks?
Because Masks PBA, right? There's playbooks,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it's way more
Okay.
customizable. And if you add, they did do an Ultimate Powers expansion book for it. If you added that, it got pretty robust. But the engine still kind of just worked off of 0 points in a thing to like 100 points. That's really as far as a character would ever get. And then you had a single percentile dice resolution column depending on how much points you had in each thing. It wasn't point buy though by default. It was actually you randomly rolled your characters.
Oh, so it's kind of like Call of Cthulhu.
I think it's more swinging than Call because like it was easily possible if you played Phase Rip like as written for random generation.
Oh, okay.
You could have like a normal human who had a gun with somebody who could throw tanks. And like
That's funny.
like the idea of balance, which is interesting because that was like my first real like game like nuts and bolts because I started dungeon mastering that right at the same time or game mastering whatever at the same time, and it was kind of like my experience of like you don't necessarily have to have a balanced game to have a fun game. So I really got weirded out when suddenly like 4E and the kind of the new gen games suddenly everybody was kind of on equal footing all the time. But yeah, I don't want to monopolize, so someone else should talk about their first game.
Yeah, let's pass that over to Olive Garden.
Yeah, well, for me, I started back in, I think, what was it, like 2017. I was like 18 at the time. I believe this was like just after high school. Like, a buddy of mine invited me to join a game. Oddly enough, I still remember that character I played. I don't remember much of the game itself, but I was playing a half-elf monk, and it was a fun like introduction, and it was 5th edition. Well, sort of. They played like some weird homebrew rules that I didn't realize was homebrew until later when like joining like other tables, and then they're like, wait, what? And I had to relearn how to play because that was an experience. And so yeah, it's like I started there. It's like I've since played in a number of different systems, bouncing around. Cypher is one I absolutely love for like a rules light system. I played in Fate. I've played in I played in a few different ones. I'm blanking on. One I was still disappointed I didn't get to actually play in, despite like making a character for, was Lancer, because the GM just disappeared off the face of the earth with no explanation, and we're all like, "What happened?" But currently, I've settled into the world of darkness. I'm in. I run a game of Vampire for some friends. I'm in a game, and I'm also in a Hunter game as well. And
Nice.
I'm really liking World of Darkness, and it's kind of like where I've settled in and kind of started like making a lot of content for.
Yeah,
So-
we're just jumping in one of those two right now, and I hadn't played World of Darkness forever, so I'm excited for you.
World of Darkness is such a trip to play,
Oh,
especially
for
when
sure.
you're coming. If you come from like a D&D mindset into World of Darkness, it is a dynamic clash. So
Oh, yeah. I think for me though, the hardest system for me to get into coming from a D&D mindset was Fate, because Fate is so free form that it's like you really have to like think outside the box, and Fate really challenges how like a lot of preconceived notions people have when it comes to tabletop. It's why like even though like I don't necessarily like Fate all that much, I recommend people play Fate at least once, because it really gives you a nice perspective, and it gives you a lot of useful tools that can be used in other tabletop games, and that really can help you create more dynamic characters, in my opinion.
who's next, Duality?
Hey, Z, do you want to get on this, or are you still driving? I don't want you to be unsafe.
I am still driving, but if you give me, let me come up next, maybe in the rotation, and
Okay.
I'll be parked by then.
Dragon,
Okay.
you're up.
All right. So, my first experience with tabletop role-playing games as an actual system was I was 18 years old and I was playing. I was at my buddy John's and he was there. Me and my buddy Patrick, the three of us were there, and he brings out this box. He's like, "We're playing this," and I'm like, "Okay." I don't know what edition of D&D it was. I don't remember anything about it other than there was a blue dragon at the end of the dungeon that we had to fight. And I fell in love with the whole product. And he and Patrick did not. They were like, "This is dumb. We're never going to touch this again." And I'm like, "I am going to make this my personality forever."
Yeah.
And
Same.
Nice.
and I remember because it was like right about the time, I think it was when 4th edition was first coming out. And I started to get into 4th edition until I found out nobody liked 4th edition and nobody played it. So I switched to 3.5, but everybody that I played 3.5 with was like, no, you got to go to Pathfinder. So I was playing Pathfinder for the longest time. And then 5th edition finally came out, and that's when my TTRPG personality like boomed. Like 5th edition opened a whole world to me of other games, other systems. I've branched tremendously from there, but ultimately it was that my buddy John just going, "Hey, we're gonna play this," and me and Patrick are like, "Okay," and yeah, it's taken off since then. But now that I'm seeing the internet now, there's all these play-by-post servers. I was in all of these like forum role-playing things when I was like 14, 15, 16 online, and that's basically like systemless TTRPGs, but only by post by play. So I guess I've been doing it a lot longer than I give myself credit, but yeah.
I used to do one of those on the old AOL chat system. It was called Ronin. And it was just a bunch of, they had the loosest agreed upon set of rules that everybody that played pretty much observed. It was like you roll 2 dice and high rolls cancel out low rolls or something. I can't remember, but everybody agreed to play by these rules. And it was a play by post in the old AOL chat rooms. Did a lot of that.
I've done a few play-by-post stuff. Which, I mean, if we're going by that, I guess I've been doing like a role-play type stuff since I was about, I want to say, like 14. Which, yeah, it's play-by-post can be something, I'll tell you that. And
Like-
one thing I've noticed, especially like when it comes to Vampire, is Vampire leans heavily into play-by-post, and you'll find so many servers that are just like play-by-post.
Well, at one point, I was in a werewolf, like play-by-post thing with the forums. Looking back, I'm pretty sure that was just Werewolf from World of Darkness, and I just didn't know what it was. But I can't go back and look because all those sites, all those histories, they're gone. There's no recollection of them.
Yeah.
But,
I did a long stint of play-by-post over on Paizo forums for a number of years, and it is a fun and completely different animal, for sure.
Yep.
that's all I got. That's where my journey started, was those play-by-posts and then that little box. I've looked it up too. I don't know what box set it was. I have no clue. All I know is there's this blue dragon, and my buddy John still has that blue dragon. It's like on his shelf at his house, and he won't give it to me. I've asked. I'm like, "Can I have that blue dragon?" He's like, "No, I want it. I bought it." I'm like, "Okay. You're never gonna play it. Like, why can't I have it?" It's like, "Nope, nope." Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know any of the old modules that have blue dragons at the end, which is sad because the blue dragon's one of my favorite dragons.
They're good villain dragons. They're fantastic villain dragons. That whole lawful evil, willing to work with society situation, pretty cool.
The Paizo beginner box for the first edition has a blue dragon at the end. I'm pretty
That's
sure.
what I was thinking actually, because it does look like that. And
It might have been that then.
it just said like beginner box on it.
Dragon Mini is really cool. It's a really cool one.
It's a really cool dragon. I still have mine.
Pathfinder's beginner box was a blue dragon. I thought it was a black dragon.
It's technically a black dragon, but it looks kind of blue. The mini does.
The mini's black.
And it doesn't have that iconic black dragon look. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, Ziz.
Yeah, right. I think you're right.
I could go get it. I could literally run in the other room and grab it. But
no, this one was definitely like it was as bright blue as this Fred Flintstone tie. Like it was a blue dragon. So I remember that distinctly.
And confirm our findings later, but not now on the show.
Yeah, I'll go back to like the old like module sets and see what I can find with the ones I have saved.
I was about to say I've got quite a few of them too, right? So like,
well, duality, you haven't gone yet. So what was your introduction to?
So the first game I was introduced to was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd Edition. But that wasn't the first one I played. The first game I played was actually Rifts. It was a buddy of mine's house, same buddy. My buddy's Steve's older brother, Don. He had these friends that were, all high school age kids because, he was a high school kid and I was in elementary school. And we were over there, and they were rolling characters up for Rifts. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever as this kid. Like, oh, you're making a giant cyborg that can fly in this power armor and shoots missiles. It's basically Iron Man on steroids. This is awesome. And we ended up making a character for me that night. And I played in my first game of Rifts, which was basically a recreation of the Alien 2 movie, Aliens. The person homebrewed in the xenomorphs. We had an APC, and we were doing a bug hunt. It was a lot of fun. After that, it was 2nd edition D&D was the game that they played the most, though. So I got really into D&D. That was the first game that I started buying the books for, but it was not the first one I had played. It was awesome. From there, I did a lot of, I don't know if it was play-by-post, but definitely play-by-chat room. And like I was saying, those old AOL chat rooms, the Raiden, I think it was called Raiden, was the name in front of all the chat rooms that were role-playing rooms. And they had things like arenas, pet shops, taverns. There was an AOL Neverwinter Nights thing where you could join up and play. It was all 2nd edition, something like 12 players at a table with 2 GMs running it. But that's where I got my start. My friend's older brother and older friends pulling me into games.
They probably were like, hey, this kid's interested. We can't find people. Bring him in.
A little bit of that. They had the first game was because I was I insisted that I played. I was like, no, I want to play this game. Like, can I? And I had to ask like 2 or 3 times because, elementary school, fifth grade going into 6th grade, kid, bunch of high school sophomores are like, nah, but, you're Don's younger brother's friend. We'll let the 2 of you play here. I can't remember what characters we played. It was some power armor type, but yeah. I think I played a Glitter Boy, to be honest. I think
Nice.
Glitter Boy was my first character.
Nice.
Ziz, are you at a point where you can answer this question, or should we move to the next one?
No, I'm good, actually. I'm parked and safe and all that. You guys hear me all right?
Hear you great.
Yeah, we hear you well.
Awesome. Okay, so I've got it set up in the car, mic up and all that. So for me, hi, I'm Zizazat, also known as Mark. I'm 49 years old. I've been playing role-playing games since I was 9, I think. So my first game that I played was literally Redbox, Menser Redbox, with my cousin. Like, Midwest, stereotypical. My cousin introduced me, all that. It was beautiful. I loved it. I loved it so much. Afterwards, I was trying to recreate the character sheet from the back page of the player's handbook or from player's guide, so that I could make my own, right? And then not too long after that, I moved to Hawaii, to Honolulu, and started like comic books, role-playing games. I found stores, right, that had these things, and began.
This is wild because around the same time I stopped at a store in Honolulu, and it's actually how I picked up Marvel superheroes. So I'm very intrigued.
No.
Go on.
Nice. It's Marvel superheroes at the time was really intimidating to me, and I never picked for the same like AD&D. You could go to the library, the public library, the school library. They would have AD&D hardback books there that were frightening, full of math and numbers and all these words, and you're just But there was there's a place in Honolulu called Jellies. That's a comic book store, albums, all all the fun stuff. And
okay, yeah. So I'm remembering it right because it had like books and CDs and comics and games. Yeah.
Yep. All the things, right? And I started getting into the D&D box set stuff, and play from there, and I have every kind of system under the sun these days. I read everything I can get my hands on. I took a break for a while, came back 2009, I guess. Right when Paizo was ascending, when Pathfinder was ascending, I came back from having taken a break from second edition. It was the last time I ran anything, but I read some stuff in between, but came back for Pathfinder, and had some fun there. That's a wild, as you guys know, if you like crunch, it can crunch with the best of them.
Oh yeah,
that's where I've done most of my design work, actually.
Yeah, I've got some publishing credits under Paizo and stuff like that. But I want to do some different things, some other things. But it's just crazy, like how there's everything now. There's a niche for everything, right? Whatever you want, but it all comes back down ultimately, I feel like, to this system that I'm going to trademark. It's called Sounds Cool, Roll Some Dice.
Nice.
Players, the players tell you what they want to do, and you say, "Sounds cool, roll some dice," and then we narrate.
Huh. I like it. I like it a lot. But, yeah, hey. Seems like we all kind of have very similar intros, really. Just randomly seeing other people doing it and being like, hey, let's do that. Or someone brings you in. Next question, Duality.
Well, so I guess we'll segue right into, like the big main point of the topic tonight, right? Like, what were the positive things that we saw from starting to play these games? For me, I'll start on this one. I hated math. And it's funny you talked about going in, looking at these books. They're ultra intimidating because of all of the math. If it wasn't for second edition AD&D and the Palladium game system, I probably would have failed math all the way from elementary school through high school and even today. They taught me how to do math in a way that was entertaining and fun, and I needed to learn it to do something I wanted to, rather than having somebody at the front of a classroom just bark at me, you need to understand how to divide fractions. Why?
100%.
Yeah, you'll use this someday. No, I won't.
Right.
And I was the guy in class going, actually, you will use this if you ever need to figure out how to hit hit a dragon that has an 18 armor class.
No.
You're going to need to do... So that was me in class. I didn't have a lot of friends in school.
Oh, nice.
Because I would say things like that. Like, wait, no, that math is actually really simple. I learned how to do this last night. I totally know how to divide
Right.
percentages and do fractions. But yeah, if it wasn't for that, I never would have picked up fractions. And I like I said, I didn't have a lot of friends like in the neighborhood where I grew up. I grew up on the Jersey Shore. Everybody was super into sports
Oh wow.
and soccer and football, and my parents forced me to play soccer because that's what, normal kids my age do.
That's a mood.
Yeah, I mean that's a
Football hitter,
whole
but yeah, same sort of thing for sure.
whole thing, but
Whole
I was
different
able to meet.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole another show topic. But I was able to get a whole bunch of friends and find this community that was into some of the same things I was. We could sit around, tell funny stories with each other, tell serious stories, roll dice, and just have fun. So let's change up the order here a little bit. Dragon, what are some of the good things TTRPGs have brought into your life?
Poof. Well, if it wasn't for TTRPGs, I wouldn't have any friends, like, at all.
I'm
I
sensing
am
a theme.
I notoriously will tell people it is bad advice to play TTRPGs with your friends, and people get mad at me when I say that. But every friend that I've ever had that I didn't make playing TTRPGs is no longer a friend after playing TTRPGs. I've never had a good experience of bringing people that I was friends with first into the TTRPG space. But I've made a lot of friends in the TTRPG space. And I don't know if it's just I didn't have good friends or what, but my best friend Blam, he is we met through D&D. He was invited by a mutual friend of ours to come to the D&D game I was running. So him and Steele and all my best friends I met through playing D&D. So the positive impact of TTRPGs is that I've found actual friends that respect me, love me, treat me good, that I didn't have prior to TTRPGs, and it took TTRPGs for me to realize how shitty my friends were. like I never realized just how out of the group I really was. Like, I was the oddball in every friend group I was ever in until I got into TTRPGs, and it was like, these are my people. This is where I belong. So, I definitely would not have good friends or friends at all if it was not for TTRPGs. So that's the biggest positive in my perspective.
Let's shoot it over to the other side.
Look like you've got a lot of thoughts, Seventh.
I do,
Yeah.
but I'm trying not to just like blah, so.
Go butt
Yeah.
in. Let's
Yeah,
say
I say we
Wow.
pass
I
the
mean,
stick over that way.
No, yeah, I was like, no, just it's interesting that you say that. Like, I resonate with a lot of what you say there, and like thinking about it, and it's like, yeah, I've made some very good like friends over the years playing TTRPGs, and it's one of those things. The one thing that still to this day blows my mind when it comes to TTRPGs is just the level of community you can find. And it's one of those things where you hear a lot of horror stories when it comes to it. And, like, yeah, that's inevitable because like people can be dicks sometimes, But at the same time, it's seeing it firsthand. Is like, while there is like those like bad elements and those like bad people that pop up, there's a lot of good people, and it's like there's people you just like naturally build a community. And it's just one of those things. It blows my mind just seeing like all these communities build around these TTRPGs, and just how it's like, yeah, it's just that shared like interest in this one thing, and it's one of those things that like, especially like in the past years, like I've made like so many friends, like as I've kind of delved into the world of darkness. It's like, especially like I don't know, it's like if any of y'all know, but on TikTok, Matt Stormcrow, he's very prolific in this, and it's one of those that like it's like, I mean, we're slowly like becoming friends and talking about it, and it's really cool. And even then, it's like even like communities I'm no longer like super active in like D&D. Like I know enough about D&D to be like, oh yeah, it's like I can talk about that and make friends that way. It's like I'm like I've made a few different friends that way, and we now have like a Minecraft server we play in, you know, and it's really just that community that really just highlights, like how like even like some of like the most like weird odd people is like will find their own place and like make their own homes, and it's really beautiful to see that, and like especially like seeing how often is like the people who gravitate towards these spaces are people who kind of feel excluded from like the rest of like society in some way. And so being able to like create those communities and tell our own stories and just feel like we belong somewhere is truly a beautiful gift, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yup.
Hmm?
7th.
That's a good segue for me, honestly, because like that kind of was the anthem for me. Is it was this way into acceptance. Your brothers don't really acknowledge you. I'm the 10th kid, okay,
Oh
and
wow.
I have 5 older brothers and four older sisters, and you know, I was literally, kids table, usually shuffled off with my nephews and nieces, because I was born, like, already had a niece when I was born, right? So, like, I was, like, kind of my family, but in a different generation of my family at the same time. It was really kind of odd. So it was really kind of the first activity my brothers acknowledged me at all, right? So that was kind of a level of acceptance, right? And so for me, that became the way I interacted with family mostly. And so after my brothers, the Satanic Panic happened when I was about 8, and they suddenly dropped Dungeons and Dragons like it was on fire. They wanted nothing to do with it. My family thought it was evil. Suddenly, like this thing that had given me kind of my first taste of acceptance or belonging anywhere was demonized. And so suddenly it was ripped away from me, and I freaked out a little bit. And so what did I do? Well, I took all the books because nobody else wanted them. They were going to throw them away or burn them or something. So I ended up inheriting everything. And so I just read them all and started teaching my nephews and nieces how to play D&D. But specifically, we actually started playing RuneQuest.
That's a
because
name I haven't heard in a minute.
because it wasn't D&D, and I could get my mom to buy me RuneQuest because it was not Dungeons and Dragons. And I learned very quickly, as long as I didn't say Dungeons and Dragons, I could do anything I wanted. So very shortly thereafter, at in middle school, I met somebody. He was Chinese Brazilian. He was born to Chinatown immigrants from in Brazil,
Huh.
and then he moved with his grandparents to Utah, of all places.
Oh
And
dear.
so he was a kind of double different country immigrant child, but he loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we're talking like Eastman and Laird. We're not talking cartoons. Cartoons weren't out yet, and like so we started playing the role playing game, and we got like super into that. So I kind of had suddenly another new friend, and also kind of gave him acceptance because Utah's very very white, and a lot of
Yeah.
people are not very kind to people who are not white,
Oh, that's
and
Utah for you.
that's got a lot better. But at the time, this was like the early '80s, right?
I bet.
And it was really kind of crucial for us both to have some acceptance. And then I realized I could teach kids how to play. And about all the time I got that going, my family moved, and it was all gone again. And so suddenly I had no friends all over again, and had to suddenly learn. But right then, second edition Dungeons and Dragons came out, and that was the first time I was there at Ground Zero. And since I got those books when they came out, I became an authority on it, and I also became like really into Marvel superheroes. So I'd run Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition and Marvel superheroes, and we would go in on the band bus. And I started building a gaming community in Park City, Utah, where we moved to, which is actually a suburb of California. Nobody knows that. Everybody thinks of it as Sundance, really, but it really should be part of California because it has nothing else to do with Utah. But
That's funny.
like I went from in Vernal my best friend's dad was a carpenter. To Park City, my best friend's dad was a drug dealer.
Oh, wow.
It was a very open, mind-opening experience for a 9-year-old. But we ended up having a pretty huge gaming community up there, and started getting everything kind of lined up. I got accepted into those communities. I also started getting really quite big for my age. Like I'm just shy of about 6, like 5'11" and 3/4 or whatever, and I was most of that height in 8th grade, and so like people thought I was going to be a giant. I wasn't. I just grew up really fast, and so like I was getting in the football and all this stuff, and I also started getting really good grades because for me, starting Dungeons and Dragons when I was 5, I knew math and how to read before I got into 1st grade. They moved me up to 4th grade math when I was in 3rd grade, I want to say, or maybe 2nd grade. I don't know. We did that floating math system, and by the time I got to like high school, I was already starting calculus like right out the gate. And that was kind of across the board because every time a math teacher didn't know what to do with me, they'd send me to the library so I'd read and I'd learn other stuff. And so I just got like really ahead in school, which actually made me super disruptive. And yeah, so that was wild. Ended up, kind of fitting in, everything was like coming up aces. I was doing good in school. I was in all the honors programs, I was in football, and we moved again. And I moved down from a class of 100, where it was very easy to be all those things, to my graduating class being 1,200. And suddenly I was just one little guy who was done with his growth spurts, and none of my honors credits had transferred over, so they didn't believe I belonged in any of those classes. And like it all just kind of went to shit, right? About the same time, I kind of realized I didn't believe my parents' faith and had many other clashes with them in pretty much any and every way you can imagine. And got really dark. And I tried to punch my clock. I survived. My parents didn't even know about it.
I know that feeling.
But my brother actually just thought I had got some fun time party chemicals and just assumed I had done whatever. But anyway, I came out the other side of that experience, and suddenly was just like, there's got to be something more than this. I survived. I didn't actually want to go because my body fought obviously really hard, right? And so I kind of started looking, and I was kind of like just wandering, and I ended up going to Kubla Khan, which was a terrible, tiny little convention in Utah. But I ran into 2 complete strangers, Aaron and Arthur. I still remember them. And I did not understand public gaming at all. No concept of it, right? I didn't understand you would go to a convention and be handed a pre-gen. So I showed up, and I've seen this before since so many times, and I always try to be really careful and sensitive to it. I showed up with a character I had already made and said, hey, I want to join your game. And they this was at a convention. Turned out they were just waiting for a game to start. There wasn't a game going on, but they totally humored me. They put together a Dungeons and Dragons game that would work for my character. I got to play my super broken Elven Blade Singer, which
of course.
Colin McComb is one of my friends, and he still gets shit to this day for designing that. But fantastic class, super broken back then. But I ended up getting these complete strangers to run D&D for me and felt like accepted instantaneously. And that was when it really clicked, because your family's your family. They have to deal with you, right? The kids you're at school with, you have to deal with each other. Even back then, there's like a politics to the people you're going to run into in the halls every day. You can't just be a dick, especially if one of the kids had a super early growth spurt and was like really huge and wanted to hang out with you.
Right.
But this was the first time in kind of the adult area that I suddenly had instantaneous acceptance from complete strangers. And moreover, strangers that didn't care what my religion was. They didn't care who I was family-wise. They didn't care what school I went to. They were just literally complete strangers. And that became my drug of choice. I became obsessed with community and onboarding people and bringing people into gaming. And eventually made what would become my found family, because of course things just got worse and worse with my family, and I ended up kind of constructing my own family unit. Started having Christmas with them. Started having Thanksgiving with them. And eventually reconciled with my family. But by that point, I hate to say I didn't really need them, but kind of not. Which actually kind of makes relationships a lot less pressure when you don't have to be beholden to people. But that's a totally different subject.
Right.
So in a lot of very real ways, gaming saved my life, like more than once. And it's kind of, as you said, Dragon X has become my entire personality.
Well, yeah. Damn. Well,
I just want to say is I've never actually been to a con, despite like how much I want to. It's just one of those things I've just never like been able financially able, and when I am, it's usually just not feasible for me to go to one for one reason or another. I mean, I grew up in Idaho, and nothing interesting ever happens in Idaho, so.
You are kindred. Go on.
So
I've never been to a big con either, but I did one year. Paizo was looking for people to run Pathfinder at a convention, and I was like, I'm interested. And then like I saw the schedule, I'm like, all I'm doing is running games. I'll never get to like even experience the convention. I'm like, I don't want to go to my first convention and just work. So
that's facts, though. That's exactly how that works.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would have.
I can offer some perspective on that. But there is exactly one reason why I am able to attend Gen Con, and that is because I live on the north side of Indianapolis.
Oh wow.
So otherwise, no, it would be like no way, no how. But the Paizo, the Paizo program generally for Gen Con is you break the convention up into slots where you run games, and like there's 10 slots over the 4 days. Mm-hmm. And as a tier 1 Paizo GM who gets a quarter of a room and store credit, you have to run 8 out of 10 slots.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, they're giving a lot. They are. It's true. But yeah, your convention is your ass in the chair as a GM.
Yep.
Period.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
and that's not an experience. Like, that's not a real. I mean, it's a type of experience, but
you still get to meet a lot of cool people, but it's exhausting.
Yeah. It's a lot of, and especially if you're, because in those 8 slots, you might run 8 different adventures.
Did you ever go to PaizoCon, Sis?
I have not. I've wanted to. It unfortunately fell on my wedding anniversary, which made it pretty much impossible to hit. But I would love to, because there was a time where I was deeply involved with Paizo, all things Pathfinder First Edition, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And like that would be the place to go, right? Like, good experience, good people, lots of great designers who have moved on to 5th edition, who are monetizing their skills, all this great stuff, and all the stuff you guys have been talking about, community, all of that, the Pathfinder organized play, coming up through there, meeting people, just right, like amazing social networking opportunities from role playing, right? On top of, you already got, like you guys have said, math skills, vocabulary skills, reading skills, interpersonal skills. Like, if you've been a forever GM, you're probably a team lead too, or a manager.
Oh yeah, manager,
or a director.
I could be, but I always turn that shit down.
Or you could like your hands on the keyboard too much and pass.
Pass.
Yeah, I don't know. But, Ziz, I guess the question of what positive effects you saw when you started playing.
Definitely, for me as a young child, reading, vocabulary, math, all those things, right? Just amazing creativity. All of those things carried on through into school, into life, right? They become skills you practice. And no, I definitely feel like role-playing games opened a lot of stuff for me that may not have opened in another avenue. Seventh, like you were saying, a lot. Like I moved around a lot as a kid. In 13 years of primary school in the United States, I attended 12 different schools, but somehow managed to do 4 years of high school at the same school.
Lucky. Good job.
So moving, right? Trying to make friends, trying to figure out how to integrate into existing social groups. Hey, you guys want to kill a dragon?
Hey, that is such a pitch. Hey guys, do you want to kill a dragon? What? Come on.
Anybody?
Kill a dragon.
Anybody want to kill a dragon?
That's how you have
second-
to sell it, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
what's the most interesting thing you can do? Here you
Also,
go. That's the pitch.
Unfortunately, in a particular demographic, maybe you want to go save a princess.
Oh.
I also got a lot of traction with. Hey,
There's a
room
room full of 12-year-old boys who, yes, will sign up to save the princess every day.
Man. Want to go to the next question, Duality? I think that's a good place to break it.
Yeah, and I feel like this one, people have pretty much answered along with the other one, but were your family and friends that you currently had when you first started getting into these, were they supportive, or did you start to find your own community, your own friends, and your own family? I think we all pretty much talked that one through, unless anybody had something they wanted to add there on that.
I think
family is family.
I think I want to briefly touch on this and just say is, for me it was a very interesting, and it was one of those things where it's like learning is like my parents and like my mom would talk about like how she would used to play D&D when she was younger, and like her and that my uncle would, and they kind of just like fell out of that. And so it was one of those things. It's like she kind of understood, and it was like, oh, cool, like you're getting out of the house, like doing things, and it's like, okay, that's cool. I mean, and socializing, and it's one of those things. It's everyone kind of had a basis of like understanding of D&D at that point, and so they're like, oh, okay, like everyone's heard of that, so they're like, oh, I know what that is. That sounds interesting. Have fun, But otherwise, like I've made a lot of friends doing this, and like I've probably lost about as much, just because for me it like, I mean not for it's for a variety of reasons, but like for me this is like a passion of mine. It's something that's like I do dedicate time to, and not many people really understand that.
I think kind of to tag on to that, circling back to something Dragon X said earlier, it kind of became a litmus test for the quality of the people that I wanted to be friends with. Like, if they didn't want to take the time to understand what it was and why I might like it and what it was important to me, it literally became anybody who didn't have the time to care about gaming or understand why I could possibly like it usually turned out to not have time for other parts of me either. Like, it just became such a good filter for my experience with other people.
So I agree. On TikTok, I've mentioned it to people before, and they all get mad at me. But like, I heavily promote other games other than D&D.
Mhm.
I'm all about play all
same.
the games, learn all the stuff. Well, I always get these people who are like, oh, I really want to, but my friends won't switch systems. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, then do you have good friends? Like,
Yeah,
I know that's a negative way to think of it, but like my friends that I play TTRPGs with, if I go, hey, there's this new game, I want to try it, they'll try it. Now, if we play 3 sessions and they hate it, we'll switch, but they'll at least try it because they're my friends. And I feel like if your friends aren't willing to at least try something, are they really good friends? And people get mad when I say that, and I feel bad, but I kind of feel that way.
I mean, to kind of add on to that though is it's a very interesting thing I noticed, especially like on, but like in the overall like zeitgeist of like pop culture is like D&D seems to really have this chokehold when it comes to tabletop games. And one thing is like this is like that's like a brand name and like almost everyone recognizes, and it's very interesting to look at like the history of D&D and see where it came from and kind of the satanic panic and to now where it's like everyone and their mom has heard of it, and how it became this kind of cultural like pillar of just of pop culture, and it's one of those things how like especially like on TikTok, it's like you see like the boom there and how a lot of people are like so hesitant to switch to other systems. And like I get it, it can be daunting, to switch to other systems and learn other systems. But at the same time, it's you see them kind of hack D&D to pieces to where it's barely recognizable as D&D, and it's like you can save yourself so much time and energy, just if you just take the time to learn another system. Like yeah, it'd be scary, and like D&D is like a large comfort thing for people, and so it's like understandable to some degree, but it's one of those things like I had some friends like I offhandedly mentioned it's like, oh yeah, I kind of want to run a vampire game, and they were all like, I'll join, and like, oh, I'm gonna have to actually put together a game now. And and next thing I know is like I'm running a vampire game for some friends of mine, and it's been good couple months now. And it's one of those things like, yeah, no, it's like I wasn't expecting this, but it's one of those things I look forward to every week, and like they look forward to it as well. And it's like they came from D&D, and I got the pleasure of introducing them to Vampire, and they're loving every second of it. And it's one of those things for me. It's I'm so glad like I can share something like I enjoy with you, and especially like coming from a D&D background like myself. And it's one of those things where it's like if I can give that to someone, it's like I want to, because it's truly a joy to be able to share the things we love with people, and especially like people who may not necessarily be familiar with it. And so it's one of those things where for me it's like yes, it's like I'll do this for you because it means a lot to me and it excites me, and I'm glad it excites you,
I think one of the reasons why people get so crazy and defensive and weird about it and kind of attack you is that this is the first time they felt accepted. The D&D community is the first place that felt like home, and especially if they had a compromised support structure growing up, they are worried that it's just like if dad leaves mom or whatever happened in their whatever any challenge to that, they don't realize that gaming can be a safe space that can allow for all those things. Incredibly defensive and freaked out because their sanctuary, their acceptance, their safety is suddenly being threatened by this world of darkness or whatever it is, and like so
Yeah.
they flip out and their first response is to attack because they're trying to defend this thing that's given them sanctuary. And I think it really depends on how you're onboarding them or how you're approaching it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons when you're getting that pushback, Dragon X, is TikTok is just like shooting into like the void, right? And so you're going to get people who do feel that as a threat, like you're somehow attacking their baby, and they're going to like lash
But
out back at you, right?
well, I get that, but like it's people that are actually legitimately like, I really want to try this new system, but I can't get anybody to do it. It's like, well, you have a D&D group, just ask them. I did, and they're not willing to switch. Well, I one time had a group that wasn't willing to try a new system, and I flat out said, "Hey, either we're gonna run this, or you got to find another DM because I'm not gonna run 5th edition after
Right.
this game ends." And they all switched. They all humored me, and we had a good time. But like, I feel like if you're not enjoying what you're running, that eventually is gonna bleed out into them not enjoying what you're running. And I know that that's a hard conversation to have, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just have to be like, listen, I can't do this right now anymore.
Right.
But if you want me to be the storyteller, the game master, the keeper, whatever term, this is what I am willing to run. if you don't want to play this, I don't know what to tell you. And I know that can be tough, but it's like sometimes you got to do that. But for the people that don't care, that don't, that are happy to just continue playing D&D, that's fine. But it's like the people that get frustrated and they're like, I want to switch so badly, but nobody will try into this new system. And I feel bad because I feel like everybody should, if they're really your friends, they would want to do it to make you happy. Like, if one of my friends came up to me and was like, hey, I really want to try this, and it was something as simple as, hey, I want to try this new game, will you run it for us? Absolutely. Give it here, let me look it over, in a couple weeks we'll run it. Like, I wouldn't even hesitate. And I guess it's a weird mentality for me.
I think you have a very flexible psychology, and I think that's a credit to you, but I don't think that's necessarily a normal thing. Like, it took me years to get to that comfort level. And I know a lot of people who barely cling on to the knowledge of like D&D. Like, I adore, Caro, the RPG mom. She only has so much time to study rules, and she's traveling for business, she's doing conventions, she's doing public speaking. She doesn't have time to pick up a new thing, so I totally get it for her. But she also will play in any system someone wants to run for, right? You know what I mean? So like, I think what your key here is what you said is about the dungeon master having the power to be like, hey, if we're going to keep doing the system, I want to play in it because I don't want to run it.
Right.
And that's a huge vote to cast. Honestly, I feel like sometimes the DM hits like 3 voices. If you're like, I'm out.
And I think also another thing to touch on there is how it's like different people will have different comfort levels when it comes to a system, and it's one of those things for me. It's like I enjoy D&D, but it was one of those things I never felt like comfortable enough or confident enough to actually run a game, and because it just felt like it was like a daunting task of like you had to memorize so many things. But then I step into World of Darkness, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. And I'm very comfortable like in that role and like kind of running that game because like okay, and there's not nearly as much like stats and stuff I have to keep track of, and I think that's another thing to keep in mind, especially like for people like running games, is how you will. I mean, you got to kind of understand like some people are going to be more comfortable and like be able to run games in certain systems more effectively. And I think kind of we have this expectations of kind of like throwing people into these roles, especially like when it comes to D&D, and it's like you often see like the running joke of like the forever DM, whereas like, oh, no one wanted to run a game, so I did, and they kind of get stuck in that. And so I think in that aspect, it can be hard for people to switch over to systems, especially like if they're going to be the ones running it, because they have to. There's a lot of overhead they have to learn, and I think. Yeah, that is something to be considerate of. But another thing also that is an interesting thing here is how it's like it's such a cultural phenomenon, especially like going on right now. Within the past years, like one thing that I've noticed is like while like D&D still remains this ever prevalent thing, is there's been a sort of renaissance of TTRPGs, and how it's like a lot of people are starting to explore other systems and like and check these games out, and so you're seeing a lot more indie games and a lot more kind of more niche games start to flourish more, because people are kind of moving away from D&D for one reason or another, And so I think that is a very interesting position to be in, and kind of how we navigate this and how we kind of talk about this.
But yeah, I guess I'm just a weird animal.
Well, I'm a member of. You're not weird. Like I mean, like Seventh was saying, like for me it was AD&D Second Edition or Rifts. For the longest time, Palladium and AD&D, they were the only games I would run. Period. End of story. I would play almost anything else, and I bought the books for a lot of other systems. Like I got a decent amount of the old World of Darkness, but I was just so reluctant, hesitant, and fighting running that game for years, just because I couldn't think of the way to do it. Like I could play in it.
Ironically, it wasn't until Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which of course was such a campy movie, really.
Oh my god.
but I got so into Vampire from that, and then we were like running way too mature games for the 15, 16-year-old kids we were at the time. We were running like really stuff I will not say on your podcast sort of games. And it was a good era for that group because it really kind of aged us up and made us think about much more mature themes, and and probably gave us our first taste of why it's good to have consent discussions.
Right.
That was Shadowrun for us.
Yeah. Oh God. Bellux duality. Bad.
Never take a deal from a dragon.
Does that have a face? Dun, dun, dun.
Oh man.
Hey, Ziz is back.
Well, now that we've kind of gotten off topic a bit, what's the next question?
Well, that was actually pretty much on topic.
Oh, nice.
The last question I have prepared, and I want to do this question, but then I want to do something a little bit lighter afterwards because I don't like ending things on a bad note. But
yes, please not. Let's not end on this one.
Oh yeah, let's not end on this one. But my answer is going to be kind of light and campy for it. But have any negative things happen because of getting into these tabletop games for you? For me, I developed a crippling paper addiction. And with my bad impulse control, I am very likely to buy that very next book that gets announced and launched, whether I really want it or not, because I have an addiction to paper and cardboard and all the rules.
Nice.
And, we've seen my bookshelf a couple times. It's not the biggest, but it's definitely there's too much on there. There's too much there. So who else has developed crippling paper and or cardboard addictions?
I wish I could say that. But I mean, this is definitely something. No, PDFs I collect. I collect
PDF
Pokemon
king
cards.
I get everything in PDF.
I have thousands.
I collect PDFs like Pokemon cards.
But I did.
I have PDFs for systems I don't even play.
I worked in an indie bookstore, comic book store, game store for 5 years, and I worked in for Barnes and Noble for 17 years. So.
Oh wow.
I'm an IT nerd, book collector, comic book collector, RPG enthusiast. So yeah, I have all the PDFs and a lot of the books because they're pretty. So definitely.
But I think to answer the question though, I mean, I've definitely had a few instances come up because of this. I mean, especially like the buddy who like introduced me to this kind of sphere. We ended up having a bit of a falling out because like I realized he was an awful person, and I mean I won't get into details on just kind of how like we got into a huge argument, and he kicked me out of the group and tried to blame me for everything. And it was one of those things where I just got tired of his shit, and started calling him out. And just because he had this habit of if you did something he didn't like out of game, it's like he would take it out on you in game. And it was just one of those. It got old real fast, and just overall it was just like, okay, we would butt heads about it constantly, to the point that I finally called him out on it, and he did not like that, And so I was like, whatever, you can kick me out all you want.
Okay.
I think the negatives that have come from TTRPGs for me have mostly been since TikTok, but we have
such wildly different experiences here. I'm fascinated. Go on.
But I've noticed that I have seen the shittiest of humanity as well as the most beautiful of humanity in TTRPGs. Like,
for sure.
I have seen, like, I've played with some of the worst people I've ever met in my life. Like, I legitimately, like, if I could throw these people into the pits of hell, I would. Ow. But then I've also met people that, like, are such beautiful, amazing human beings.
Right.
But I did not know how bad humanity could actually be until I started playing TTRPGs with some people. And it's like some of the stuff that people want to do in TTRPGs solely because it's this power fantasy for them.
Oh, for
that
sure.
They can get away with whatever they want and there shouldn't be repercussions. And I'm like, this is not what I want to do. Like, if you want to play that, you can go ahead. But that's not happening at my table. It's
True or false?
Yeah, let's just say
primarily
like,
in a
like
3.5 derivative.
Let's just say
And
like
I heard a
stuff
lot
like
more about
that
World of
is,
Darkness, but
oh yeah, World of Darkness definitely like old school World of Darkness. It attracted a lot of interesting characters. I'll say that.
I've been in a
But-
few LARPs that I had to walk away from.
Oh, the LARP scene is something completely different. Yeah, but let's just say like because like awful people is like there's a reason is I stopped playing Warhammer because Warhammer attracts some of the worst people you'll ever meet.
A certain type of person.
It's wild because it's finally moving away from that, but you are absolutely right. For several years, it was just nightmare.
Yeah, it's like I stopped playing probably back in like 2017, 2018. It was just, yeah.
I think the other thing that has kind of been a negative is the TikTok experience is the mob mentality of like the TTRPG sphere. Like there is no room on TikTok, especially TikTok, for any nuance. If you have an opinion that does not match the collective, you will get ran off the app in a second. I've seen it to people that like sure there are the people that deserve it. I get it. They're shitheads. But there are people that that will make like a comment that is perfectly innocent, but because one person with like 100,000 followers is like, this is misogynistic, that person can never post another video. And it's like,
yeah,
was it though? Like I hate that mob mentality where everybody will gang up and this person who like really honestly probably doesn't even know what they did can never make another video.
It's also weird that like a piece of something can get seen without the full context and really get distorted.
Yeah,
and people won't even go look for the full context. That's
another thing I've also noticed when it comes to TikTok is like it can be difficult to even find the context, and so like unless you want to spend like hours trying to figure out what the fuck everyone is talking about because no one wants to explain the situation, and you're just caught in the middle of a shitstorm. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Why is everyone mad here? And it's like,
why are all these apology videos happening? I haven't even seen the original.
Yeah.
Right, and they're like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Getting
stuff out of context is fascinating.
And then there's also the lack of like empathy and forgiveness. Like I said, a person could say something completely unaware that what they were saying had any negative. They get hit by the mob and they come out and they're like, listen, I did not understand what I said. I apologize. And no one will forgive them. It's like, you are public enemy number one. You are never allowed back in the community. And I hate that. It's like,
we need to get better as a whole about the road home, like restitution or making things better. Because right now everybody is escalating, but nobody's providing any sort of forgiveness.
It's definitely an interesting spot, and like I've seen like people rightfully like ran out, and it's one of those like you see some awful people do awful things, and it makes sense. But like some people, it's just like okay, they don't give any room for people to learn and grow, and it's one of those things. Especially like for me, like I like to lead with opportunity of growth and learning because it's one of those things. Is I know I don't know everything. It's one of those things for me. I don't like it when people belittle me and judge me because I didn't understand something. And so it's one of those, like, to an extent, it's like I'm willing to give people the benefit of the doubt and explain it to them if they come at it in good faith, And I think it's a lot of people kind of skip over that and just assume everyone's a bad faith actor, which really can damage like this community,
Yeah.
Just say you like normal racial modifiers for your D&D races you're gonna get ran off the app. Like
that
that's
was a
one of the ones
whole that was a whole dumpster fire.
Oh, I hate
And
that topic
I
because
just
it's
I feel like there's different play styles.
so
There's different play styles. There's history. There's
Yeah.
like perspective. There's nuance. Right. There's all these things that
Well,
You can't
Yeah.
have a
TikTok is
nuanced
training us out
conversations.
of.
Yeah, it's
and
impossible
whether
to
or
have
not
a
you're
nuanced
doing a
conversation
second
in
world
10 minutes.
fantasy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what
It
was that?
blows
Sen?
my mind that we get so weirded out about second world fantasy, and I'm like, this is an entirely different species.
Yes.
Like, it is not. I have in my setting that I wrote telepathic giant spiders. Do you think they should have no statistical difference between
I
a
also,
human and
I
not?
also
I've
think,
always
I think
said
when
this.
it comes to that,
I've always said
Go
the
ahead.
issue's not the ability score adjustments; it's the lore attached to them.
Sure.
So
yeah, for sure.
that's the thing. It's like, is +1 -1 int in a game that is just a math problem? Because all of these games are math problems of some varied level of sophistication. Sometimes the rules are very light and it's easy math. Sometimes the rules are really elaborate and it's complex math. But is +1 +1 int -1 strength the problem, or is it all of the language that got attached to explain +1 int -1 strength? I think it's for me. It's
How
just the words that are
societally,
there.
yeah.
It's the words.
Yep.
So I have always said, well, none of that has any bearing here. We're just looking at math problems, equations, variables, and constants.
Sure.
That's just how I handle it. I understand that's not how everybody sees it, but it's the way
For
I've
sure.
always, boiled it down to in every game, because there's a reason why you roll +1 or -1. And if those things are inconsequential, don't have them in as modifiers. Don't have the stat there. Don't even have the
Yeah.
line item that explains that there should be something different. As a
It is
Palladium GM...
wildly.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like Fabula Ultima, which we're getting ready to play.
Yes.
Like, not
Totally
even
different.
caring. We
Yeah.
just don't care.
It doesn't
There's
exist.
no anything, and I'm like, wow, that's wild, but fine, good, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Move on.
What's your character?
You know?
It's a dryad.
Uh,
Cool. What's the stat adjustment?
Right.
Doesn't matter. Well, I got 3 mechanical arms. Doesn't matter.
Right. Doesn't matter, right? Yeah. The approach in Fabula Ultima is really interesting and is sort of like I feel like maybe is a peak, of a career of playing, from 83 onward.
Yeah.
The way things are going now, because like in Pathfinder, for example, 3.5 derivatives, when you get system mastery, then you're building the mechanically competent character that you need regardless. And then maybe if you're lucky, you're trying to figure out how to role play that weird combination of very specific things makes you super good at the thing that you do. But having Fabula Ultima, for example, where none of that really matters in a competency context, opens it up to to be as cool and weird and random as you need it to be.
I have an interjectory question from
Cool. Sounds cool. Roll some dice, right?
Okay. What's the question, Seventh?
The question is, what is the opinion on critical successes for any D20 check as opposed to just being on attacks?
I'll go
Yes.
last.
20's a 20. The 20's a 20.
20's 20, so it's always good at your table?
It's always good. It's something good always happens. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's something
I would
good.
be lying if I said I didn't care when I see it on a skill check.
For me,
It's good,
it's like,
but it doesn't always denotate success.
Mhm.
Right.
yeah.
Correct.
I
The
think,
DC could have been 90. I don't know.
Right.
I have strong feelings.
I know, this is your favorite topic.
I would say- No, I would say I don't play much D&D anymore, but one thing that I really liked that came from Cypher is how it's like Cypher has this system where it's basically known as like you have minor and major crits, and depending on context, it's like you can do that allows you to do extra things. depending on like what you're doing, or like in the instance of combat, is it allows you to do like extra damage, and like that is something that like, I really like, and like I like to carry over to other systems and that have a sort of like a crit system like that, where it's like okay, it's like depending on like what you're doing is like you can do like the extra things if it makes sense.
Go on,
Yeah,
Dragon.
I'm curious. Wait,
Nope.
sorry, I was curious. One question before we move on from Olive. How do you delineate? We're at 5 successes in World of Darkness. Now we're at 9. Because 5's a
Oh,
big deal.
five
But if
is a
someone's
big
on
deal.
fire and gets that 9, what do you like? What point does the crit just stop being improvable?
Hey, I haven't really run into that issue. I think it's one of those like it's like yeah, like at a certain point when it comes down to World of Darkness, it's like yeah, you beyond succeeded, and like it's like yeah, it's like oh hey like the difficulty was like 5 or 6 or whatever, and you got like a 12, like you beyond succeeded, and like it's like a crit doesn't matter at that point. At that point, it's like you've succeeded and then some.
Yeah. I'm gonna add one last thing before I hear Dragon's opinion because I don't want to be biased by this. But I will say this: on skill checks, there is still impossible. There is never I'm going to bring the kingdom to their knees, worshiping me with a diplomacy
for
check by
sure.
rolling a 20.
That
There.
it's a running joke in my vampire game is like how my players want to Diablerize Kane, and I laugh and be like there is no trying, you lose.
Wow, he's bringing the microphone to his face. Okay.
Oh, here we go.
If I cannot succeed, why the fuck are we wasting my time rolling the dice? If you know that what I am asking to do is impossible, tell me it's impossible and don't let me roll the dice. Or if you're going to let me roll the dice, spell out what I'm rolling for. Because if I waste my time taking my d20, getting a natural 20, the highest possible score I can get, my assumption is that I am getting something. It doesn't mean I am getting exactly what I wanted. But if I am literally told, nope, you fail, I am instantly checked out of that game and I want to leave. That will take me out of the fun and experience instantly. I don't know why. I hate it. It drives me bonkers. I talk about this with almost every DM I go into a game with. If I cannot succeed and you are not going to give me anything, at least don't let me roll the dice. Now, the reason being, I have a buddy by the name of Steele. He ran a game for us. He put a tome of like ancient arcane magic in this dungeon. My character was a wizard whose sole purpose was to gain more power. I latched onto that tome. I go, okay, I'm rolling Arcana. Nat 20, 32, because I had a plus 12 in my Arcana. Oh, you can't decipher it no matter what you do. Instantly, I wanted to leave. I'm like, then why the hell did I roll the dice? Now, he could have said this is beyond your comprehension, but you recognize that the symbols on this are similar to Volo and some of his writings. Maybe if you look at some of his other works, you can start to decipher it. That's okay.
Clue.
Okay,
so
direction.
If I can get a nugget,
the note is okay.
Yeah, like if you give me something, or it could bleed into like that is a quest to go find. I use Volo because it's a well-known name.
Right.
Go find one of Volo's other writings and study those, and it may help you decipher this. Or it may lead down a bunny trail of, hey, this is similar to the writing of this ancient wizard that disappeared 100 years ago. Last known location was X. It plants seeds for a story adventure, something. Give me anything. But if you just tell me like my buddy Steele did, no, you failed.
Yeah. I definitely like people to be able to try. And if it's a no, and I know it's a no beforehand, I'm already thinking of what they're going to learn by failing.
See, and that's what I am okay with. But if I'm gonna waste my time taking this die, rolling it, doing the math, and coming up with I got a 32,
Right.
and your only response is, you get nothing. Why the fuck am
And-
I even playing this game? Why am I here?
Right.
If I-
And there's someone I follow on TikTok who gives like wonderful advice that can be applied to any system, and they always say like always be upfront with your players, and like outline is like what a success means and like what a failure means in that instance, and give them full context of like what they're rolling for and what they're doing. Because like nothing is worse than just feeling like the DM or GM or whatever is just keeping secrets from you locked behind a check that you didn't meet the difficulty for.
Sounds like
I
you've been
also
watching
have
some
the
Scene
opinion.
4.
Yeah, I love Scene 4. I love him.
I have the opinion if there is a door and there is story elements that the players need to have to progress the story, and you put it behind a locked door and they cannot access that because their skill rolls aren't high enough, I feel that you have failed as a DM. I know that's gatekeepy to say, but that's on you that they didn't get through that door. Why put valuable information behind a door?
Yeah, if there's not an alternate way to open that door, that's pretty shitty.
Yeah, and
rule of
yeah.
three, right?
Or
You
to
should.
find. Sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead, Zeus.
rule
No, I think
of
that's
three,
good.
right?
Yeah.
There should be three different ways to present the information.
Oh yeah.
Because players pick up on things differently. Like there's so many things in the meta that are like know your group, make sure you know the people that you're gaming with. And in public games, in pickup games and stuff like that, convention games, it's much more difficult to know the random people who are coming to your table, but when you're gaming with your group, your regulars, right? Like you should know them, know how they learn things, know what they're into, know how to pick their brains, to keep them interested, right? The adversarialness is still like is weird because like the player there I have been in a lot of experiences where the player will say I search for secret doors, and they roll, right? They throw the die as soon as they say the thing, and like, bro, no, I don't care that it's a 20 now because nobody told you to do that, right? Like, you threw the like no.
Yeah,
that's
it's funny you say that because I've played at a few different tables and like people will handle it differently, and like it always blows my mind that there are tables where the like if you wanted like make a check, like just announce and roll for it, and like that to me is kind of weird where it's like I'll be like, okay, like I want to do this thing and kind of like be like, is there like something I should roll for it, like instead of just like announcing that. And so it's like I guess it's a matter of like a play style, and I think that's also why it's important to have like a session 0 and kind of make sure everyone is on the same page, and like you establish like ground rules, boundaries, etc. And that way you don't end up creating like a character that doesn't really fit in, and you just don't end up having fun, because I've had that happen a few different times where like I wasn't on the same page as everyone else because no one bothered to really communicate, and so I walk in with this character and it's like, oh, this character is not fit for this game.
Yeah. What's up,
Go ahead, Seventh.
Yeah, I just didn't want to interrupt. I think I know where that behavior comes from though, because there were particularly early on, and Duality, maybe you have this experience, I don't know. But very early on, it was considered the high art of dungeon mastering to TPK or to defeat your players, which of course is asinine because the DM can just say rocks fall, everybody's dead, whatever. But like what I'm getting at with this is it became this weird meta game where like people were, if you didn't ask to roll for trekking traps, you didn't get a chance, and now you're dead. And there were even modules that gave that as direction. They're
Temple of
infamously
Horrors.
one of my favorite.
No,
Yeah,
Tomb of
Tomb of
Annihilation.
Horrors, I was about to say.
Tomb of Horrors, and I was actually going to bring up, and I like Monty Cook, and I love the module Labyrinth of Madness. But there literally is a shaft in that module where you crawl into it, and suddenly magic becomes dead. ladder retracts in the wall, they fall and die. It's a lethal fall, and it's in Magic, and you can't get the body out for various reasons, and basically it's an irresistible kill to a character, no save, no resurrection, and it literally says in the module, this will demoralize your players and make them feel that this is a true challenge.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just kill somebody's character, and this is like a pretty mid to high level module. So you're killing someone probably, if they've played that character up, they've played for years. Maybe, okay, in a fast track game, they've played it for months.
Yeah.
And you're just offing this party member to make a point, and in a way they can't ever be brought back. And
don't you think that is a product though of the time and convention style play, where you were supposed to turn and burn these people out of the table as quickly as possible?
Like that, like funnels.
Yeah.
Funnels to me are now horrifying, because like if I bring my Critical Role watching friend into a funnel at a con, they are going to be traumatized.
Yeah. They're going to cry.
First off, they're going to be traumatized by make 14 characters. All of these are going to die but one, and if that one succeeds, he's not a commoner anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
Dungeon Crawl Classics still runs the funnel as part of its initial
yeah, I know, and I have people that swear by it.
Yeah. I enjoy funnels, but they're not for everybody. They're really not.
It really is. You have to know the player style. Yeah. For sure.
We've kind of veered off of the topics and meandered a little bit. And I do want to bring it back to like a closing question for this whole what do TTRPGs do? And that is like we're nearing
the seventh real quick.
Yeah.
By the way.
Well, seventh never said his negative thing.
Oh, yes.
Go ahead.
Do you mind if I just do them really, really fast?
Go for it.
I'll do it as long as you want. We got time.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
So, first negative thing, we talked about it being this safe place, this place of acceptance, etc. Also, because of that, a whole bunch of people get together and leaders emerge. And it often becomes the first place where people experience power. I'm not just talking about in-game, but I'm talking social power. And I think this is where our horrible behaviors come from. Because these are people who have been marginalized or pushed out or put to edge case, whatever. They have zero experience of being in control, being in a majority, whatever. The power goes straight to their head, and they go monster mode like...
Yeah, I've seen it.
And I think that right there is one of the bigger problems for me. The second thing, though, is that we care a lot about this stuff. And so when we all care about stuff but we disagree, those fights in our groups of friends are brutal.
Mm.
The 4th edition Pathfinder split destroyed lifetime friendships of mine. And I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
Like, destroyed. And I'm not saying that we still try to be friends, but it's up there with like finding out your best friend cheated on you. Like, it was bad. And like those friendships are not the same, and they never will be ever again. And I'm not saying that's because they're bad friends. It's just we really cared that much and we really disagreed that badly, right? And there was tribalism and a whole bunch of weird things, and we were manipulated by media / propaganda, whatever. But like at the time it hit us, the way the community was, how the scarcity reactions felt, it was awful. So there are my 2 negative things. Go to your lighthearted final question. Sorry.
Oh man, no. I lived through that with 2nd edition to 3rd. There are people that I will never play games with again because of them deciding to play 3rd, and it's the best thing since sliced bread. And I've deeply held opinion that it's not. It's not that good of a game. It's okay, but it's not my flavor of.
I wanted to hate it so bad, but I ended up liking it.
I like Crunch. I play and run Palladium primarily. Anybody who's run any of those games or played them, which by the way, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is coming out next year. I got the books.
Is it just the same, like a reprint?
They're just reprinting it.
It really is.
Yeah, it's just a straight reprint. They re-got the license, I guess, and they're doing a whole new reprinting of it.
So if I still have my books,
same rules.
There's going to be a lot of new art.
Yeah, a lot of new art.
But yeah, the rules themselves are.
Rules are going to be the same.
So
they might do some like Rift's Ultimate Edition style additions to it. Like, we updated this rule with the Ultimate Edition, so there you go. But those books went.
I was really excited at first. I thought the rules were going to get a treatment, and when they said that they really weren't, I was, I mean, I can go buy that book.
Yeah,
today.
it was one of those ones where it's like I was excited, then not as excited, but then still excited that I get a new printing of a game that I loved.
I'm
playing.
excited to see it in the zeitgeist again.
Yeah,
Honestly.
it was one of my first systems outside of D&D when I was growing up. That I think one of you had said before, like you didn't know what to do with the system really. Like it was really cool. Making a character was awesome, right? It was a great experience. You made this super cool mutated animal thing, and then what?
What do you do?
And then what?
Yeah.
you.
I ripped off every.
I don't know.
I ripped off every episode of the Saturday morning cartoon when I was running Turtles originally. Shamelessly.
And I got super
Excellent.
into Transdimensional, which of course was Baby Riffs.
Yeah.
Like
after the bomb, like they had a supplement that had some adventures and stuff, but that also was just like it didn't. I don't know, for my 12-year-old brain, it didn't make sense. I guess I was just like, I don't know what to do with this.
But I guess my lighthearted question, since we just got out of Thanksgiving, we're coming to a year's end, another year in the hobby for everybody. What through 2023 would you say has been the best or most positive experience you've had in the hobby, or something that really just, gave you the good feels? For me, it's been meeting a whole bunch of people that I normally would never walk up to have a conversation with randomly. Having this fun, weird, hectic, and yes, at times contentious hobby, even between all of us. I like D&D. I hate D&D. Whatever. But meeting all these people and being able to share stories with that I would never meet, being this strange, reclusive guy who hides in his house 90% of the time with a couple of dogs.
Right.
Finding all of these people that I do consider friends, even if I've never gone out and hung out with these people in real life. If I've played a game with you and we're talking after that first session, we're friends. So yeah, I mean, what has been your favorite thing this year with the hobby? Anybody?
I think for me is like one thing that I've noticed that I'm pleasantly surprised by, given as I mentioned earlier, like the chokehold that D&D has, is how like I've noticed like over the course of this year, like a lot of people are starting to like venture into other systems and learn new systems, and like you see that, and people are talking about other systems, and especially like indie systems as well. But I think also for me, it's like there are people like I've looked up to, and like it's like I love their content. It's like I love just like who they are as a person, and ending up like friends with them and getting to talk with them, and it's like it's almost intimidating because some people was like I love your content, and it's like I just feel like we're not on the same like playing field here, and it's one of those where it's like oh, and then it's like, oh, you consider me your friend, and it's like that is a very interesting place to be in, and it's truly beautiful.
We're all just folks, but I think it's cool that you've had that experience for sure.
The wild thing for this year, for 2023, of course, we had the whole OGL scandal. And the rise of Orc, and just the impact, like Wizards pissing a portion of their base off enough to like sell out the entire print runs of these other systems, that all of a sudden, people were like, well, I guess we're not giving our money there anymore, so let's go here. That's wild that exists even, and like they don't bother to show up at Gen Con. They don't care as a overall, and to see, it's really wild to see so many people who have basically are Paizo alumni coming onto 5th edition now because really they want to get paid. They're talented. They're really talented people, and they want to get paid, right? They want to get paid at that Big Daddy money.
Yeah.
For Wizards.
It is interesting to see. There's a lot of those people that have been on that staff for a couple of years now, and
Yep.
they're still getting command decisions that make things bad, even though they're doing great work and doing a lot of the people who are on the ground and doing the creative work and doing the design work are fantastic people.
Yep.
And there's still just people up above that are doing stuff, or people that are making snap editing decisions or whatever.
Yep.
That screw up the whole thing.
Yeah. So for 2023, the rise sort of that, those dollars going, other places has been fantastic to see. So many different things sort of get, like we talked about in your game, you share a spotlight, right? So share the spotlight on things. Too many people, I was forever, I was a mono rules, monogamous rules type of person. Like if it wasn't second edition, GTFO, right? And then Pathfinder. If it wasn't Pathfinder, GTFO. Like I only have room in my head for one system to master, and so that's the thing that I'm going to do. But getting into this more flexible, learning from these other designers and what is an old throwback to something from wargaming and what is a modern sensibility because it makes more sense at the table. What is collaborative for the storytelling versus just the dice determining random chaos. All these things, it's amazing to be able to look at this whole spectrum of things and then find almost anything that you want in there, right? There's, go to drive-through and throw down a couple bucks on something, go to Itch and throw down a couple bucks on something, and you'll find amazing things out there. So,
absolutely. Are you going Dragon or am I?
You can go. Well, you're good.
So 23 specifically. So for me, because I want to say 22 is when I started TikTok. And I really had an amazing experience with TikTok. I just loved meeting all these people who are super passionate. I don't care if they disagree with me because so when I started doing game design, when I published my Kickstarter and everything, I went through the playtesting process and even had a lot of the people like Ron Lundin, who works for Wizards now, work on my book with me. And to have collaboration where we would disagree or I had to point out something that he'd done or he had to point out something I'd done. And the same thing for a whole bunch of other people. Michael Sayer, who is one of the main designers of PF2 now, worked on so many of my books. We've worked together so much and kind of butt heads on stuff. I kind of learned that creative conflict was good. And so then walking into the community and getting all that back in my face again, I just was like, cool, that's a really good point. One of my favorite creators is DSR Adam, I think is his handle. He does almost all OSR retro clone stuff, and I hate almost everything he loves. But I learned so much by listening to how he advocates for it and why someone would care about it, right? So the thing that I did that I would never ever have thought I would have done before 2023 was the one shots. Up until this year, I hated one shots. Seriously, I've gamed for 40 years, and unless I'm at a convention, one shots were a waste of my effing time.
Yep. And
I was so vehement. Unless I was just trying out a system, I never wanted to do it. Certainly not in a system I cared about. And someone says, and now he loved them, and they become real campaigns. That's because that's my problem. I always want to make everything into a campaign. I can't write a short story. I write the first chapter, right? But I guess actually trying to play in that limited situation where you're only going to interact with these people maybe this one time, and maybe you're never going to like each other again or whatever. It takes kind of the best parts. I played some PFS. I went to PaizoCon for 7 years running, mostly because I was in the third-party community and wrote for their system, and I actually wrote for them a little bit. But I wanted that experience of kind of seeing what other people thought, and I started learning more and more. Oh, that DM does this thing, and it's really cool. That's really weird. Oh, that's neat, and that's this, and this is a totally different perspective on this. And I started kind of pulling things, and so now it's okay, I'm going to play a very popular game like Dungeons and Dragons and see what people bring in. And I've been playing with dozens of complete strangers, and knock on wood, I've had very negative, almost no negative experiences at all. which has been wild. And I've met people I love playing with, and I've met people that I had fun playing with, and maybe we're not going to agree. Like, I think Carol likes modules and she likes structure, and so when I do stuff that's like super wild and weird, she's like, maybe we'll play again in a year, but like, we had fun together, and I loved playing with her. Her what is it? Oath of the Seas Paladin was amazing, by the way, with a Minnesotan Oath of the Thousand Lakes basically accent was top notch. But yeah, it's been fantastic, and just meeting all these amazing folks, and some of them are becoming real friends, and it's just been like super cool. And I would have cringed so hard if someone said next year you're gonna run dozens of games with complete strangers. I would have laughed to the bank, right? Like, but it's been incredible, and in a totally different way than organized player convention play, where organized plays and convention, it's the one night stand of gaming, right? You're gonna wham bam, and then that's that, and you never have those characters again, probably, or whatever.
Here's your chronicle sheet, and Godspeed.
Yep. right. And so, yeah, this has been really cool. Anyway, sorry, I could rave about it forever.
Oh, that's fun. I am of the mindset I love one-shots unless it's D&D, and then I despise them.
Again, 100% agreed with you until this year.
For me, D&D is about progressing and getting stronger to kill more monsters and do cooler shit. So the thought of playing a one-shot in D&D just my brain does not fire in that direction. Also, I want to say, like, overall, my TikTok experience has been wonderful. It's just, and I don't have a problem with varying opinions. The problem I have with TikTok is that I feel that most of the time when it comes to D&D specifically, the negative is all that you see.
Oh yeah.
Or at least that's all I see. So like, I'll see people ripping other people apart, or I'll see all this negative stuff surrounding D&D. That's why I made the comment, like, if I was an outsider who'd never knew nothing about D&D and my only experience with D&D was people's videos, I would never play it, because it seems like the people that play D&D hate each other. And I know that's not the case, but I feel it's like... Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I'm sorry.
TikTok highlights the negative, and the wholesome, good content is like down at the bottom. They're like, oh, this doesn't get views. Let's promote these guys hating each other. But
yeah, TikTok is known for promoting rage bait.
A thing that you might all take as a personal challenge is make sure when you see content that you like, you are engaging with it positively, right? Commenting, thank you, right? Thank you for sharing that. That's really cool. Or just any, right? Because there's so many creators now who are saying, like, well, I'm going to say this controversial thing because I know it's going to generate a ton of comments while people fight for the next 8 hours in my comment section. Go for it, guys, because it's just driving the algorithm, right? Like, and they're not wrong, but right, that's terrible. You just arguing. The same topics come up over again, and because there's no nuance, there's no memory, there's no, everything's a goldfish bowl, and you have people agreeing to agree about the same things over and over again until somebody, like said, comes in, maybe innocently, ignorantly says the wrong thing or misspeaks, speaks from a place of ignorance, and then are castigated out of the community because you should know better. We've been having these arguments for 5 years. Why? For 10 years? For 50 years? Why don't you know these arguments already? Get on him. Come on.
So I guess to answer Duality's actual question now, 2023, especially in the last 3 months, has been a boom in production for TTRPGs for me. I joined the Beards and Barbarians Twitch stream that gets 600 viewers. I started being a co-host here on this podcast with Duality. I've been in more games than I can count this year than I've ever been in my life. I have a weekly Sunday night game with the improv GM and those wonderful people. Like, I don't know what 2023 what happened, but like people are contacting me to be in their products and to be in their stuff, and it's like, okay, I'll do it. I'm happy to be here. So it's been wonderful. This, like I said, the last 3 months have been incredible for my TTRPG journey, my TikTok journey. Like everything that I've wanted out of this is finally coming through, and it's a wonderful experience.
Cool.
Awesome.
That's good. When you said the other day that you characters don't get happy endings, it just hurt me deep in my heart. So,
dude, we'll go to that after we cut. That's a topic for after we shut down. I think we're good. I think this episode's over.
Yeah, I think we're. So that sounds good. I think we've been going for almost 2 hours here on this topic.
God damn.
Yeah, normally we only block off an hour. But does anybody have anything they want to plug, where they can find you, any upcoming projects that you'd want the people who watch this podcast to know about?
I mean, I don't have any projects, but if you want to check out my content, feel free to check me out on TikTok at Arbiter of Chaos.
Cool. I'm 7th Mastery pretty much everywhere. My Twitch channel could use some love because I still don't have affiliate yet. But I also, if you are a 3D printer, co-host another podcast, which is Print Your Games with Harem, formerly of No Direction from Pathfinder stuff. So we do that on Tuesdays. But yeah, TikTok, 7th Mastery. If you like Magic and D&D, I might really scratch your itch.
Go ahead, Ziz.
So right now I'm not creating much. Once the Fabula Ultima game goes live, you'll get to see some of my cool maps that I'm working on through Incarnate. But really, I just make silly little videos for myself. I'm a big lurker on TikTok mostly. So, tons of knowledge, tons of experience in the industry. But these days, just kind of.
You said you worked on some Pathfinder stuff. What books or what?
So I've got
scenarios.
I've got some PFS scenarios. I've got some beginner box stuff.
Cool.
Back in the day, Iron Gods. I've got a couple of monsters in Iron Gods APs. If you're into that, and
give me your real name later because I want to snoop.
Oh yeah. It's real easy because if you search for Zizazat, you'll find me. I'm
okay, that's enough then. I'll get there.
Yeah, it's fine.
I don't necessarily want you to get doxxed or whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
Consensual doxing.
Right. The actually on my Paizo profile, I think probably has the best links to all the different. I did some Wayfinder stuff and a couple of various different things for Paizo. The coolest thing, actually, though, was for the beginner box. I didn't know they asked me to write 5 scenarios that could be run like any of the for walk-up tables, right? You play beginner box scenario, whatever. So I wrote 5 adventures for that, and then they created this cool little checklist card that has the 5 things on it, so that you could carry that around to the different tables and have the GM sign off on it. And I had no idea they were doing that till I got to Gen Con, and I was just like,
nice.
Thank you. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen. So
very cool.
I have one of those.
I think I actually had one of those.
Yeah, I've got one hanging in the other room. So.
I've gone to like 4 or 5 Gen Cons.
Okay.
Recently. First one was 2015 or 16. Unfortunately, because of Awake. Awake was what it finally took to get me to Gen Con. But
oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, if you come in next year, so I haven't got because pandemic, I haven't gone since 2019. But next year, I am. I guess it was okay this year. It was fine. So I'll probably go next year for sure. So you guys are going to be in Indianapolis let me know.
All right.
All depends on logic.
Also,
Sorry. Go ahead.
also, next week we are meeting with Hilarious Game Master to go over and introduce his tabletop role-playing game, Legends of Kralis. So anybody watching, come check that out. It should be a great conversation. Duality, check us out.
All right. So thank you again, once again, everybody here, Ziz, Seventh, and Olive for joining us on Ronin's Den. It's been a ton of fun. I hope to get everybody back on the show again in the future for other topics. Ziz and Seventh, I can't wait to start playing Fabula Ultima with you, and I hope I live up to expectations as a game master, because I'm not going to lie, I'm a little intimidated by that table. But everybody have a great night, and we will catch you again next time.